The Igbo, being one of the largest ethnic groups in Nigeria, are characterized by a distinctive and robust history embedded in the decentralization of power amongst coexisting states. While several states in western and northern pre-colonial Nigeria operated under central governments and ruling systems which made up renowned empires and kingdoms, the non-centralized Igbo community, in contrast, had several states with ruling autonomy in their jurisdictions. This decentralized governance system shaped Nigeria's non-centralized states differently from others and influenced their social and political organization as well as their reaction to British colonialism. For a people used to govern their people in their own corner, one can understand why they would vehemently resist a ruling centralization, more so, one instituted by foreign intruders. The line that partitions states into being centralized or non-centralized is primarily characterized by the system of governance in such regions. In plain terms, non-centralized states are regions where groups of inhabitants constitute segmented states where each state operates under independent governance. It is worthy of note that the term state does not refer to the conventional definition known today, which speaks of political units under a federal government. Rather, what is implied is a group of inhabitants in a segmented location linked together by family ties and associations. This understanding will form the basis of this narration as the history of Igbo states and their peculiarities are further discussed. The non-centralized states of Nigeria were mainly among the Igbos, who upheld strong communities and associations and thrived in the pre-colonial era in neighboring worlds of their own, so to speak. So, what are the unique features of Nigeria's non-centralized states? Non-centralized states in Nigeria were characterized by a decentralized political structure in which power was dispersed among various groups and individuals rather than being concentrated in a single authority. A major feature of non-centralized states was the absence of a central ruler. Instead of a king or supreme leader, governance was carried out through councils of elders, age-grade associations, and family heads. In Igbo society, for example, decision-making was collective, with village assemblies playing a crucial role in administration. Another key characteristic was the egalitarian nature of these societies. Leadership was often based on merit, wisdom, and seniority, rather than hereditary succession. Non-centralized states also exhibited a flexible political system that allowed for autonomy among different groups. This decentralized nature enabled local communities to manage their affairs independently while still maintaining social cohesion through shared customs and traditions. Social organizations such as age-grade systems and secret societies played significant roles in governance and maintaining law and order. Unlike centralized states, military organization was generally less formalized. Defense and security were often managed at the community level, with groups mobilizing only when necessary to repel external threats. Economically, non-centralized states were heavily reliant on agriculture, trade, and craftsmanship. While they engaged in trade with neighboring societies, the economic systems were generally localized, with barter playing a significant role in transactions. Religiously and culturally, non-centralized states maintained traditional belief systems that reinforced communal living. Ancestral worship, divination, and oracles were integral to decision-making processes and conflict resolution. These characteristics of non-centralized states contributed to their resilience and adaptability, allowing them to function effectively without the need for a rigid political hierarchy. non-centralized states of Nigeria existed and operated independently as segmentary units. However, there were some connections and common grounds among them. These connections represented activities and engagements which brought them together and fostered social interactions between them. Although the states were separate, their connections usually brought them together, and for the period they lasted, it would seem as though the states involved were merged into one. One such connection which brought the Igbo states together was marriage. Since members of a state could be traced to a single lineage, it was only right for a man to marry only women from other states. Thus, interstate marriages were common, and as marriages were worthy of celebration, one could trust both states involved to try to outdo each other in the celebrations. Another thing which brought the different states together was interstate business trade. The economy of the states prospered as they engaged in the trading of produce, wares, and crafts with one another. In addition, market locations were rotated between the states, and thus interstate interactions were bound to occur among the states. Finally, one more thing that linked the non-centralized states together was the worship of the gods. All the Igbo villages had shrines for different deities they believed in, and as such, people went from state to state to either make inquiries from the oracles or to have them appeased. Before the British colonization came into play, the people of Aro dominated many of the non-centralized states of Nigeria and other non-Igbo states in several regards, assuming the place of an elder state amidst the rest. The reason for this was not far-fetched, as they possessed certain traits and exhibited some sort of advantage amongst the surrounding states. Let's take a look at a number of the reasons for their dominance. First and foremost, the great oracle of Arochukwu, called Ibini Ukpabi, was in the hands of none other than the people of Aro. Across Igbo land, the Arochukwu oracle was greatly revered, and many from across the non-centralized states often visited the oracle to seek guidance. This put the Aro people on a much respected pedestal among the Igbo tribes. The use of the oracle transited from being just a religious shrine to a general seat of judgment amongst the non-centralized states in an unspoken form of centralization in a highly decentralized setting. Another edge the Aro people had over others, which fostered their dominance before the British colonization, was their control of the major trading routes in the non-centralized states. They not only controlled the central routes, but they were also skilled traders themselves in several goods exported from the states. They further extended trading networks and business influence with several regions across Nigeria and prospered immensely in economic growth. The Aro Confederacy was not without military power, as they had allies from most of the non-centralized states of Nigeria, which provided them with the much-needed military support to maintain order in the regions and also control the trading routes effectively. Their military strength greatly strengthened their influence on the other states and allowed them the privilege of right of way without confrontation. Despite this, they were wise in their dealings with people to not deploy force when unnecessary. They had a great sense of cultural integration and relationship with both Igbo and non-Igbo lands, which facilitated their acceptance by those they engaged in dealings with. Finally, they maintained respect among the non-centralized states as they resisted British colonization vehemently, becoming the last state to succumb to British dominance. This was following the Aro invasion carried out by the British in 1901-1902, which succeeded in vanquishing the Aro dominance and ushered in British colonialism in its full strength on the non-centralized states of Nigeria. The arrival of the British in the non-centralized states had profound effects on the social and the governance structures of the Igbo groups. The impact of colonialism was deeply felt, as by the time the British departed, these states had been significantly weakened, particularly in terms of political independence, structural organization, and social activities. So, how did British colonialism play a central role in disrupting the autonomy and isolation of the non-centralized states of Nigeria? The first major disruption to the decentralized Igbo communities was the imposition of warrant chiefs, introduced to facilitate a system of indirect rule. This measure was fundamentally at odds with the traditional system of governance, as the local people lost their rights to make decisions on matters directly affecting them. The warrant chiefs, who assumed the role of decision makers, were often accused of corruption and cruelty towards their people. Consequently, tensions escalated, leading to conflict and resistance against the British system. One such notable event was the Aba Women's Protest of 1929, in which the women of Oloko remonstrated against the unjust imposition of heavy taxes by the warrant chiefs. This uprising paved the way for further acts of resistance against British colonization in the subsequent years. In addition to appointing warrant chiefs, British colonialism systematically stripped village elders and age-grade leaders of their administrative authority, replacing them with foreign policies and structures. A new political order was established, causing divisions and strife between the local people and the British administration. Furthermore, colonial courts were introduced to resolve disputes, disregarding the traditional system of conflict resolution. This resulted in significant cultural clashes and a growing imbalance between the Igbo people's indigenous beliefs and those of the colonial rulers. Consequently, British colonization led to a substantial decline in social cohesion and unity among the non-centralized states. A primary objective of British colonialism was the exploitation of resources within the non-centralized states, generating substantial profits for the Crown while integrating the Igbo economy into the global market. The British took control of trade between communities, leading to the disruption of local economic structures and social networks. Moreover, economic exploitation was primarily focused on cash crops such as cocoa and palm oil, which drastically altered traditional trading systems. This shift negatively impacted subsistence farming, reducing agricultural output and contributing to widespread food insecurity. The introduction of Western education gradually influenced local perceptions of cultural heritage, with many beginning to view their traditions as primitive and outdated. School curricula included themes that undermined indigenous traditions and cultural practices. Meanwhile, the introduction of Christianity progressively eroded belief in traditional deities, leading to significant changes in religious and social dynamics. British colonialism also facilitated rapid urbanization and infrastructural development across both centralized and non-centralized regions. The construction of roads, railways, and other infrastructure improved the quality of life for many, prompting significant migration towards urban centers. These mass movements resulted in a decline in the population of non-centralized states, weakening traditional social structures and severing many from their cultural roots. The erosion of communal organization and traditional social ties further contributed to the transformation of Igbo society under British rule. Overall, British colonialism had a lasting impact on the non-centralized states, fundamentally altering their political, economic, and social frameworks, the consequences of which continue to be felt today. Aside from the Igbos, other ethnic groups of Nigeria's non-centralized states before British colonialism are the Tiv, the Idoma, the Ebira, the Ibibio, and the Anang. The people of these non-centralized states thrived in an autonomous, egalitarian, and active social organization. The advent of British colonialism inadvertently led to the crumbling of the system of governance and social structure of the non-centralized states, but not before the Aro Confederacy had established a period of dominance and resisted the foreign European intruders for many years.